with undercurrents of suspicion, longing, and ambition, and every familiar face seemed to be caught between the weight of past mistakes and the glimmer of possible futures. As the day opened with Claire standing outside society in the crisp autumn air, her coat wrapped tightly around her as though it might shield her from the whirlwind of emotions inside. And when she finally stepped into the restaurant, she was greeted not only by the scent of roasted coffee and fresh bread but also by the piercing gazes of Victoria and Nikki, who were already seated at a corner table deep in conversation, their voices low but tense, reflecting their shared concern for the family and their own unspoken competition for influence over Claire's decisions. And as Claire approached, her heart beat faster, because she knew the confrontation she had been putting off was inevitable. And though she braced herself for resistance, she reminded herself again and again that this was her life, her chance to set her own course instead of bending under the weight of other people's plans for her. So when she asked her grandmother softly for time off to travel to Los Angeles, there was a tremor in her voice but a steeliness in her eyes, a juxtaposition that did not escape Nikki, who immediately assumed this meant she was chasing after Kyle. Because in Nikki's mind everything lately seemed tied to Kyle Abbott's presence in Claire's orbit, and while Victoria's expression tightened with cautious suspicion, Claire swiftly cut that assumption off at the root, making it clear this was not about Kyle at all, though even as she said it, she could feel the shadow of Kyle looming over the conversation like a ghost refusing to be laid to rest, and Nikki, clutching her coffee cup with practiced composure, couldn't help but probe whether Kyle had done something else to hurt her, while Victoria, more blunt, reminded her that impulsiveness had consequences, warning that rushing from one intense relationship to another without taking the time to breathe could lead her down the same destructive paths they had both once walked. But Claire, her chin raised, countered that the entire point of her decision was to stop living reactively, to stop waiting for permission or the right timing, and to finally live by her instincts, something she had spent her whole life denying herself. And her words carried a conviction that made even Victoria falter, though the moment of tentative acceptance was shattered when Diane, her eyes sharp and her energy storm-like, appeared seemingly out of nowhere and pounced on the tail end of Claire's declaration, latching onto the words like a hawk spotting prey, and her voice, rising quickly into an accusatory pitch, cut through the restaurant as she berated Claire for breaking her son's heart and turning her back on the love Kyle had poured into their relationship. And the confrontation escalated so quickly that other diners turned their heads, sensing the rawness of old rivalries flaring again, because Diane could never separate her maternal devotion from her need to control, and Nikki, unwilling to allow Diane's venom to taint her granddaughter's moment of independence, rose to the challenge with the full force of Newman authority, her voice icier than the fall breeze outside as she reminded Diane that Claire's decisions were hers alone to make, and that Kyle's pain, while unfortunate, was not an excuse to guilt her into staying in a relationship that did not align with her truth, and the volley of accusations flew back and forth until Claire, her patience at its limit, spoke with trembling clarity that she was walking away not because she wanted to hurt Kyle but because she could not give him what he deserved, admitting with heartbreaking honesty that she didn't know how to love him back the way he loved her, and to continue would be a cruel deception to them both. And as those words left her lips, Diane's outrage boiled over, but beneath the fury was fear. Fear of losing not just Claire but the vision she had built for her son's future, and when Diane finally stormed out, leaving a trail of indignation behind, Claire felt both liberated and hollow, because standing her ground meant severing threads she had once thought might bind her to a safe and certain path. And when the air settled, Victoria switched gears, her voice gentler but her eyes searching as she asked why Los Angeles of all places, and Claire, her lips curving into a smile tinged with both excitement and mischief, confessed that Holden would be there on business and had offered to show her around, though she downplayed any suggestion of romance, assuring them with a grin that they were just friends, though the twinkle in her eyes betrayed the possibility of deeper feelings she was not ready to voice, and Victoria, wary, pressed the issue, noting that it seemed risky to leap so soon into another entanglement, while Nikki exchanged a knowing glance that carried the weight of decades of watching family members throw themselves into dangerous liaisons, and though they said little, the concern was palpable. But Claire reminded them that Cole's death had taught her the harshest lesson of all, that time was precious and waiting to live one's life could leave nothing but regrets, and with that declaration, both women were silenced, unable to deny the truth in her words even as they feared what choices she might make, and across town, in the gleaming offices of Jabot, Kyle's devastation unraveled in front of Jack, his voice raw with anguish as he confessed that Claire had ended things, and worse, that she was leaving to find herself, which to Kyle felt like a euphemism for running from him, and as he vented his frustration, Jack listened with the patience of a father who had navigated heartbreak himself, reminding Kyle gently that sometimes love required letting go, even if it hurt like hell, and though Kyle tried to process his father's wisdom, he could not shake the sting of rejection or the gnawing suspicion that Holden Novak had more to do with this than Claire admitted, and when Diane entered, still vibrating from her clash at society, the room became even heavier as she relayed the news that Claire was indeed leaving for Los Angeles, and Kyle, already on edge, spiraled further, lashing out at the implication that his mother might still try to defend Claire's choices, and though Diane assured him she believed the story was far from over, her words did little to calm the storm of insecurity and anger swirling inside her son, and while the Abbotts wrestled with heartbreak at Crimson Lights, Tessa prepared for her own battle, explaining to Sharon her plan to investigate the hotel where Mariah had stayed, believing answers to her wife's crisis could only be found there. And though Sharon cautioned her that snooping might be perceived as betrayal, Tessa's resolve was unshakable, her love for Mariah fierce enough to risk everything, even if the truth she uncovered tore them further apart, and Daniel, arriving just in time, added his cautious support, acknowledging the danger but unwilling to let Tessa shoulder it alone, their alliance underscoring the gravity of the secrets they sought to unearth, and elsewhere, Sally, never one to shy away from risk herself, hijacked Billy's video account to reach Jill, her words tumbling out in a passionate plea as she confessed not only her love for Billy but the dire state of Abbott Communications, describing how Billy's obsession with proving himself and reclaiming Chancellor had nearly derailed everything, and as she pitched Jill on the idea of investing, her tone straddled the line between personal and professional, business and heart, revealing the complexity of her motives. And though Jill listened with skepticism, she also recognized in Sally the spark of determination that had drawn Billy in, ultimately agreeing to come to Genoa City to discuss the matter further, a decision that promised even more upheaval in the already chaotic Abbott family, and back at society, Victoria and Nikki revisited Claire's decision. Their conversation laced with protective instincts and deep misgivings about Holden's connection to Kane and his entanglements with Audra Charles, deciding they would enlist Nick to keep a quiet watch on Claire in Los Angeles, though they knew she would bristle at the interference if she found out, and in the park, when Kyle confronted Claire, the emotional powder keg ignited as he accused her of running away not to find herself but to be with Holden, his words dripping with bitterness and his eyes burning with hurt, while Claire, refusing to be baited, reminded him with quiet firmness that this was about her journey, not his insecurities. And though his accusations stung, she held her ground, unwilling to back away from the independence she had fought so hard to claim, and in that charged exchange, the air between them became thick with unspoken feelings, the remnants of love tangled with the sharp edges of disappointment, and as they parted, both carried the weight of unfinished business, their futures diverging yet still bound by the lingering threads of what once was, and so the day closed in Genoa City with hearts bruised, loyalties tested, and secrets brewing, setting the stage for the next chapter of love, betrayal, and ambition in a town where nothing stays buried for long.